Welcome to Dateline Health. This is Fred Lippman coming to you from the Alan B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation. And that's my opening. As you well know, I've been saying this now since the center was created. And we've had a lot of people. This is not the typical healthcare show that we do, but people have asked, what is an innovation center and what impact does it have on things like pharmaceuticals or instruments or procedures or whatever. So I said, well, the quickest way to find out is for us to bring forward John Wensveen, who is a Ph.D., God bless you, and he's the Chief Innovation Officer of NSU and is the Executive Director of the Alan B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation. Welcome, John.
Well, good day to you, Dr. Lippman. It is a pleasure to be with you, and I'm so excited about our conversation.
I thought it would be a great opportunity at this point in time, at this period of time, which is like the end of a semester. Everybody is going on holiday, and we keep people ask me, what's an innovation center? So, John Wensveen, here you go. It's your shot.
All right, this is an opportunity to do an elevator pitch then. So what is an innovation center? Typically, an innovation center, and they are all over the world, pretty much every country in the world has innovation centers. And the concept is to look at real life challenges that result in strategic solutions that can be implemented and scaled. And it's a very large 30,000 foot definition of what an innovation center does. When I joined NSU, it was December of 2019, and not really knowing that the world was about to change and had this task of creating an innovation center, I had to pivot very quickly. I was a team of one at the time and had to really truly define what is the purpose of an innovation center. And it forced me to think more innovatively about what we needed to do here at NSU because the world was changing around us very quickly, at an accelerated pace. And every month that went by, there were more balls that were thrown at us, curveballs, if you will, that we had to navigate. And ultimately, what we did is we created a public-private partnership between Southeastern University, which is the largest private research doctoral university in the state of Florida, quickly approaching a $5 billion economic impact on the communities that we serve throughout Florida, and Broward County government. And when both parties came together, we agreed to co-invest 50-50 initially into the design and build out of an innovation center, which in our case is located at the NSU main campus in Fort Lauderdale. And we have a 54,000 square foot purpose-built space on the 5th floor of the Alvin Sherman Library. And what's interesting about the location is that the Alvin Sherman Library is also a public-private partnership between NSU and Broward County, and that made it a very strategic choice for us. The 5th floor of the library, the top floor, had never been built out. It was literally a cement box. So 54,000 square feet of space, just to put that in perspective, is the equivalent size of a Bed Bath & Beyond. And I have to come up with a new reference now, given what's happened to that brand. But one day people are going to say we're as big as the Levan Center of Innovation. And when I looked at this space, I said, we truly have an opportunity to build something more than an innovation center. We're going to build the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs. Imagine a space where you could reverse engineer the success of an entrepreneur from the very birth of an idea right through the successful exit of a company, or maybe it's a global expansion opportunity that you're looking at. And what we would do is we would set ourselves up, for lack of a better term, as Switzerland, where we're a very neutral resource that internally serves the NSU community, working with the academic colleges and schools, as well as non-academic units, where we could accelerate the research practices coming out of the university, more technology transfer, more grants, more licenses, more patents, as an example. And the other half of that coin was to serve the community at large, so that we had a local, regional, national, international impact. And the idea there was to identify entrepreneurs at different stages of their journey, internally and external of NSU, that were ideating and incubating and accelerating ideas and businesses that they were scaling. And what's really interesting about the entrepreneurial community is that most entrepreneurs fail. They are not successful, a great majority of them. And what we wanted to do is figure out what are the risks of being an entrepreneur at the different stages of the life cycle. How could we make it easier and seamless and accelerated and bring the resources to you so that you don't have to go figure out what resources you need to be successful as you launch and scale your company? So this innovation center model that we built is a little bit different than anything that exists in the world. And we were able to validate that. We were fairly recently the recipient of the Global First Prize Award from an extremely prestigious organization that looks at what we call entrepreneurship centers all over the world. And then they shortlisted the candidates, and we took the Global First Place Award. And we were the youngest model ever to receive the award because of the data and the successes that are coming out of the Innovation Center. So the first 2 years that I was here, we designed and built out the facility. And then for the last 2 years, we've been operating the Innovation Center. We're actually celebrating our second year anniversary in April. And as a result of everything that we've built here, we've now served more than 200 entrepreneurs. We've created more than 65 new companies. We have an $86 million economic impact on the region because of the businesses and the new jobs that are being created. So at last count, there were more than 425 new jobs created in South Florida as a result of us helping facilitate the creation of these businesses. And when we say we reverse engineer our innovation model, we literally identify all the resources that an entrepreneur needs at different stages of development and put that around our co-program called the Founder's Journey. And we currently offer Ideate, where you ideate ideas and then you incubate the ideas as a second phase, and then you accelerate the launch and scaling of your business in the third phase of Accelerate. And then over the coming year, we'll implement what we call Post-Accelerate, where we help companies with merger, acquisition, IPO, and international expansion opportunities. And part of that reverse engineering recipe is we bring in professional networks. We focus on 3 themes of innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. And the Founder's Journey, the 4 pillars of Ideate, Incubate, Accelerate, Post-Accelerate. And then we bring in services like business planning, strategic planning, marketing, branding, legal, accounting, finance, technology, HR, even self-care management, because health is an extremely important aspect that entrepreneurs neglect because they're 24/7, 365, and they don't think about themselves and keeping themselves healthy physically, mentally, as an example. So that's an important part of our recipe. And that's the high level view. And then within our toolbox that we've created, we bring in a lot of forward-thinking emerging technologies, and we create accessible opportunities for entrepreneurs at different stages of development to be able to use those technologies to make themselves better and bigger and to be able to scale the businesses that they're launching out of the facility.
Well, John, there's a lot of things that have been asked, and I have just a few of them that I would like you to talk about. There's this Veterans Entrepreneurship Program that I get questions about. I personally get questions about. I just wondered if you could offer some comment about that.
Absolutely. This one really has a special place in my heart. And as we grow our model out, what we've done is we've created entrepreneurship programs called the Founder's Journey that are not focused on any specific industry. We look at everything, but there's always a technology focus. That was our first phase of growth. And then our second phase of growth was to launch a space program. So we planted the space flag here in South Florida. And now we have what we call spacepreneurship programs in partnership with an organization called the Space Foundation, which is the foundation in the world of space that helps us out with the Ideate, Incubate, and Accelerate. And then the third and most recent phase of development was to serve military veterans. And what this really did in terms of how it came about is I took a trip to San Diego with Broward County as part of an economic development trade mission. And I was extremely distraught by the downtown San Diego core and how many people lived on the streets and all of the problems that they faced, the challenges, and especially males, that the great majority of the males on the street actually came out of the military, where one day they were serving our country and the next day they were on their own. And recognize that generally in the last 6 months of transition from military service to civilian life, bad things start to happen. It's the alcohol, the drug abuse, the physical, mental abuse, as examples. And when I got back to Fort Lauderdale, I got with our team and said, we really need to do something in our region to serve the veterans community. So the original concept was to figure out how we identify transitioning military in their last 6 months of service, because the government will compensate those individuals in their final 6 months to create new skills, to find a career, if you will, so that they're successful when they leave the service. And that's still part of our plan of growth for the future. But what we did find, where we did find an opportunity, I had a discussion with Veterans Florida and said, this is what I would like to do with our innovation center. How can you help us? And they said, your timing is great because there's a grant resource opportunity right now that you might want to consider applying for. We did, and we ultimately were the recipient of Veterans Florida grant funding to create 2 entrepreneurship programs to serve veterans. The very first program is a 10-week program that literally takes qualified veterans, and in our case, we started with a cohort of 14, and they just graduated this week. And we actually had the very first Veterans Entrepreneurship Pitch Night this week, and all 14 veterans that were accepted completed the program. So that was a 100% completion rate, which generally does not happen. So we were very excited about that. And next week, we start a 6-week program that's focused on the growth of veteran-owned companies that are already in business with revenue generating, and we're going to assist scaling those businesses to the next level. So it's basically our Founders Journey program of ideate, incubate, and accelerate combined into 2 different programs specifically geared towards veterans, in which we bring in program facilitators that understand how veterans operate, their thinking process, the experiences that they've been through, the ups and downs of what they've experienced in their life. And that's embedded into the actual entrepreneurship programming, because veterans have a different way of looking at things and accomplishing their tasks. And what I really like is that when they set their eyes on the target, they're going to figure out how to get to the target, and they have an extreme advantage to being successful. And our goal is to help shape them along that pathway to get them there and make sure that they're successful. So it's proven to be successful for us, and we're definitely going to try to determine ways where locally and nationally we can continue to secure more funding from the public and private sectors to make sure that these entrepreneurship programs continue to run to serve the military veterans as well as transitioning military in the future.
Well, I take great pride in listening to what you just said, because I really think that in some manner, shape, or form, and not to denigrate anyone, but I really think that we've left some of our foci on these people who are protecting the nation, and it's really sad to see what you saw in San Diego and what I envisioned on the streets of New York and actually Chicago as well. It's heartbreaking. One thing relative to, you use the word pitch. I don't know whether our viewers understand what the word pitch is. So would you say that, to explain to them what that means?
Sure. I think most people are familiar with the TV show Shark Tank as an example. And what happens in that environment is you have an entrepreneur on a stage that is pitching or trying to sell their product or service to a set of judges that ultimately will invest into their company or somehow partner with that company. So the word pitch is commonly used in the entrepreneurial space. And what we do is we work with our entrepreneurs at all their different stages so that they're continuously improving their sales pitch. And we say elevator pitch more commonly because there's a lot of history behind what an elevator pitch is. And the idea is that if you get into an elevator and you ride it from the ground floor to a certain level in a building, and let's just say you've got 30 seconds or 60 seconds in that elevator ride, can you sell your idea to your audience in that 30 to second time frame experience? And what we actually do in certain cases is we will put entrepreneurs in the elevators in our building on the ground floor, and they have to sell their concept from the ground floor by the time they get to the 5th floor to at least engage and get interest. And it's a very, very challenging task, but they master it.
I also wanted to talk a bit about the Space Foundation, knowing that we had the privilege of having the director of NASA here, as you might remember. He was very, very impressed by the visit In fact, he elongated the visit originally. I mean, I've known him for nearly 40 years, but that's beside the point. But the fact is that when he came here, he had a certain amount of time, and he kept shoving his people off to the side because he wanted to see more and more and more. But I'd like the public to know of our involvement in the issue of space.
It's so timely right now, and we greatly appreciate the opportunity for NASA Administrator Senator Bill Nelson to be able to visit NSU and the Levan Center of Innovation to learn more about what we're doing. What's very interesting is that there's been a disconnect in the space. I don't want to say space industry because we don't even use that word anymore. We talk about the space economy, and there's never been a better time to be able to get into the space economy for an entrepreneur, even a one-person entrepreneur, not recognizing that their existing company can pivot to support the space economy, or you can actually create a space company today because the barriers of entry are coming down all of the time. And space isn't just spaceships and Martians, it's a whole lot of other things, and it's for the betterment of Earth as well as inner and outer space applications. And there's the hardware side of the business, and then there's the software side of the business, there's the people side of the business, there's the medical health, life sciences side, and I can go on. I can tie almost any industry somehow to space. And what I really wanted to do with our team was plant a space flag. So 2 years ago, we literally designed a space flag and planted it here at the Levan Center at NSU. And we did the very first ever South Florida Space Day. And at that time, we had Broward County government, Mayor Michael Ludine, join us on stage, and we had a proclamation declared. Now, forevermore, there is South Florida Space Day, and then we completed the second South Florida Space Day fairly recently, and now we're gearing up for this fall to do the third one. And what we do is we convene the space economy together, and it's not just here in South Florida. We actually have in public and private sector representation from across the country and internationally, and we think the first year we got about 300 people. The second year we got 600 people. We're anticipating we'll probably get 800 people this coming fall. And what we wanted to do was to create a spacepreneurship program, which is a word that we invented and now trademarked, and figure out how we create ideate entrepreneurship programs, incubate entrepreneurship programs, and accelerate programs, and to do that with a partner. So we brought in the Space Foundation that believed in what we were doing because they recognized that South Florida has a lot of great infrastructure and networks and is continuing to grow, especially with the advancements of infrastructure like spaceports or the technology sector really growing in South Florida, that we're at the foothills of the fourth industrial revolution, or what we call Industry 4.0, that the Wild West is in South Florida, and there's truly an opportunity to grow space and connect us to the Florida Space Coast, national and international space systems. And that's exactly what we are doing. And in the last 2 to 2.5 years, there's been more light shining on South Florida now because we're driving the message that space is alive here in South Florida, which will attract new industry. It will home grow new industry. And we thank the Space Foundation for bringing in their global network to help bring exposure to what we're doing. So I believe that in 5 years, you're going to see new types of companies already in the commercial market that are supporting different types of challenges with solutions on Earth, as well as in inner space, and then the next phase of outer space, which is essentially travel to Mars.
With reference to what you just said, I know the Space Foundation was very impressed with the space dock, correct?
Correct. So we've created a program called Level 5 Space Dock at NSU, and that's a very well-defined term because we wanted people to know that NSU and the Levan Center of Innovation and South Florida, specifically Fort Lauderdale, Broward County, is now a destination for space. So I'm going to Space Dock, and it truly is a destination. It's not a building, it's not a program, it's not infrastructure, it's a whole world that we are creating here. And the Space Foundation truly believes in what we are doing. And as a result of that, we actually now travel the globe together on the speaker circuit, whether it's moderating panels, participating on panels. And what's really interesting, it's now captured the attention of eMERGE Americas, which is the largest technology, entrepreneurship, and investor conference in the state of Florida every April. And they're celebrating their 10-year anniversary this April. And we've been able to convince them that we need to bring space into that world. So we'll be moderating the Space Foundation and myself, the Levan Center, about what the trends, challenges, opportunities, and strategies are around space at Emerge America that attracts 20,000 people. So we're getting more and more exposure there. And then in 2025, we're looking at potentially bringing in a space track for entrepreneurs so they can come through the Levan Center. And then hopefully the next phase of development is they get to Emerge Americas, where they truly get to pitch in front of large dollars and real infrastructure that could lead to products and services being scaled out of South Florida.
Another thing that we had that visit with Senator Bill Nelson. Well, I always still call him Senator, but he's the director of NASA. But we had a visit with by Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and I remember her talking about the military-grade cybersecurity range that we have. So you want to explain to the folks what that is?
Sure. So a special shout out to Congressman Debbie Wasserman Schultz. She has been an amazing supporter of the Levan Center, and she actually spearheaded our opportunity to secure a $1.94 million grant from the federal government to implement emerging technologies at the Levan Center. So to date, we have about $6 million in federal grant funding spread across 3 large grants. And part of that funding went to the design and build out of a military-grade cybersecurity range. So cybersecurity is an emerging technology that is really, it's been around for years, but it's truly in the infancy stages of where it's going. And cybersecurity is important to the security of our country. And what I wanted to do was to create something that was unique to the region, a true powerful cyber range that was focused on supporting industry and government clients primarily, where you could come in and on the training side of it, work with cyber and non-cyber professionals at the entry, mid-level, and advanced professional levels, as well as do various types of simulation exercises to test the infrastructure of different types of organizations and to penetrate the faults that exist in your security infrastructure to make you bigger and better in terms of an attack, and to also help you to become more proactive instead of reactive, depending on the audience that we're talking to. We can also do personnel assessment for cyber and non-cyber individuals. So what is the likelihood of them being successful in the likelihood of preventing or responding to an attack? Various types of simulation exercises using mock data that is very representative of different industry sectors so that you can test real world simulation opportunities using real life data as practical as it can be. We also have the opportunity to do what we call capture the flag events, where we have what we call blue teams and red teams fighting against each other to solve cyber challenges. And then finally, we have the ability to do what we call executive suite briefings and C-suite briefings. So we can work with different organizations at all levels and truly with a global audience, whether it's done physically in person in our cyber range or virtually. We have opportunities there as well. And there's only about a half a dozen type ranges in our country. And that's why this is so unique. It's been built in what we call a black box environment. So when we talk about being military grade, it's a safe, secure zone. And anything that were to happen in that safe, secure zone cannot go outside of the 4 walls. It has its own software and hardware, its own cloud-based application, its own data room. And it's designed to be something called a SCIF, which is a secure environment. It's not classified by the government at this time, but the government, with a couple of minor modifications, 3-letter government agencies could certify it as a SCIF, which makes it important for top secret or secret applications as well in the world of cyber. But it's unique. And it's also available to the NSU community internally, where we can use it on the academic side for undergraduate and graduate level, as well as certification training, which is a model that we're now starting to further design and develop and hopefully implement successfully to train cyber professionals, because there are more jobs available globally than there is enough qualified skilled talent to pursue those careers. So there's never been a better time to get into the world of cyber in terms of a career pathway.
Well, we're down to the last 2 minutes of the show, and I think we should have another hour of work. But I really am so pleased as someone who's been part of this university from its very beginnings. I'm in my 37th year. And I just want to thank you, because not only because of your knowledge, but also because of your institutional, shall we say, imprimatur of excellence that you bring to the whole question of NSU. You bring NSU into a different world. We're not just the university on the other side of I-95. We're a university that's on the other, that's all over the world, actually. And John, Dr. Wensveen, I call you John only because I like you. I want to thank you for being here today. Again, I think one of the turning points of this university, Nova Southeastern University, which is NSU Florida, which I believe is really NSU USA. I see in your eyes and in your soul and your work the way John Wensveen, Dr. John Wensveen, is adding to the value of not only our society, but to the knowledge of the people of this country as to Nova Southeastern University. And I want to personally thank you. And maybe we'll have another run at this at some point in time later in the year. And I want to say thank you, John, for the wonderful studio that we have. I don't know whether you talk much to our lead person, Greg, but he's top-notch, 100%. Rita, I don't have to talk about because she's been with me forever. But the bottom line is I want to thank you for all of your hard work, for all of the content work, which is valuable not only to NSU, but to the citizens of this nation and the world. So thank you, John Wensveen. Folks, if you have any questions, you have any comments or otherwise, there's an address, an email right here. We'll send it on to Dr. Wensveen. And remember, this program is called Dateline Health, even though we didn't talk much about health today, but we'll talk about it at some time in the future. My name is Fred Lippman. Until next time, see ya.